Is Snap going pay to win? This topic has been super hot for about the last week, and pretty much since they announced those series drop changes where they were not going to be on a schedule. I'd covered my concerns about this previously, but felt the need to do a specific video on this topic alone. I'm looking forward to all those disagreements and hopefully some agreements to the points I make in this video. I'd love to hear them in the comments below. All right, so why did this come up again? Mainly because we got our first drops after the original change in plans, and those drops were Snowguard and Stegron from 5 to Series 4, and then Shauna from 4 to 3. So the question is, well, what's missing from this? I've got a spreadsheet that I track all this stuff for. We already know that Darkhawk and Null did not drop as planned. We did not see Zabu on that list, which I believe was supposed to drop in the month of June. Sauron we got early. Shauna was expected in June, so that's on target. We got Shadow King and Dazzler early, so there's nothing there. Besides that, there wasn't technically anything else that was supposed to drop to Series 3. So really, it's about Zabu we're missing out on here for the Series 3 drop. For Series 4, we had a couple options here that we could have gotten that we didn't. We obviously talked about Stegron and Snowguard. Those are on target, which were they're supposed to be. The ones we did not get were Jeff the Baby Landshark and Hitmonkey. So this indicates that for the second month in a row, they've gotten 2 additional cards that are keeping behind a token paywall in Jeff and Hitmonkey. It's pretty well known that those cards are both really good. And that was the exact fear that we had when this first started happening. Again, did we get anything else early this month? Like a crappier card or maybe not a non-meta card? We're still living off of these ones that we got earlier from last month. Those aren't anything that are going to move the dial with the player base. They're not that exciting. They're okay, but nobody's out there playing these in any top tier metas. Hopefully, maybe we can get a master mold early into Series 3 next month, or maybe even Nimrod. I mean, those are 2 cards I could see them potentially dropping early, but I'm guessing that's probably wishful thinking on my part. So people are obviously upset about this, and that is totally understandable because this is what we're getting. So they're 2 good cards that are locked again. So we've got Jeff the Baby Landshark, Hitmonkey, Null, and Darkhawk all being kept back when they were supposed to drop from a point that we were originally expecting. Now, these recent 2, obviously this was something that we could have expected given what they've recently said, but that doesn't make it feel any better. Second Dinner has made an announcement about some of this, which we'll get to in a bit, but first I want to give you guys my original opinion on this, which I shot in another video. This was about 3 weeks ago when this was originally covered, when they had the patch notes for this stuff. This was my original opinion. I wanted to give some of this so you could have some context on where I was before, and have I changed my mind at all. And the item we're about to jump into, the flexible series drop. This is the thing that everybody is annoyed about and should be. The long and short of this is there's no more set schedule for series drops. If you're new to the channel, I have a spreadsheet. I track these. You can always accurately expect when something would be dropping. We were supposed to get Silver Surfer, Null, Sentry, Darkhawk in dropping to Series 3 in May in this patch. We got Silver Surfer and Sentry, but we did not get Null and we did not get Darkhawk. Instead, we got Sauron, Dazzler, and Shadow King. Cards that nobody really wants at all. They're not very good. Whereas Darkhawk and Null are both very good cards. Darkhawk is for sure meta right now. So in looking at all these expected drops, they might not stick to this. You just don't know. I'm still going to continue to track these with expecteds, but they even say here that they may even skip a month of series drops. It just depends what the meta is going to look like. They're doing it on a card-by-card basis. And player feedback, allegedly, instead of just having this blanket rule of thumb where everything just drops on a certain cadence. So the good and the bad. The good is this is great for developers. Why? Because they can keep popular cards hidden behind a paywall. That paywall being tokens. If they do this for really good cards in Series 5, I fear for the player base of the game. Series 4 isn't as big of a deal, but it still hurts. I would say that you can use your tokens that you generally can get for free to get whatever Series 4 card like Darkhawk out there for 3K, but you also need to get new cards for the 6K purchase price, which we're going to tie into some of the things that they're doing in the future, where if you're not buying new cards, you're going to miss out on tokens. So that's where when you look at this, it's almost impossible. I think arguably impossible to look at this as anything other than a way to make more money in game, which is good for developers. And look, I always say these games are free to play, but they're not free to make. So I want games to be successful financially, so that the rest of us can keep playing them and having a good time. My fear here is that if too many good cards become inaccessible for the player base, they will not play. I can sit here and argue and go look at data on untapped.gg and say, look at all these decks that have free to play type cards and you can still do well. But that's me, and not a lot of other people are going to necessarily think that. I get tons of people saying, and you're hearing comments where I can't get a card. This is pay to win or pay to play. And up to this point, I've argued against that. I'm like, no, it's not. It is not pay to play. It's very much free to play friendly. For $10 a month, which is a very minor price,
and I still agree with that,
you can get the season card and a whole bunch of rewards. But I fear that now this opens up the door for keeping all the good cards hidden behind paywalls until they don't become meta and then get dropped. Again, I want this game to do well. I like it, but I always get worried about how much those sort of things get introduced to a game and push other players out who might not be interested in spending at all or that sort of money to stay competitive. Ultimately, these sort of games need a player base to spend money or they will die. So I'm all for it, developers. I really am. But this feels like it could get too greedy too quick.
Feels bad.
I am going to hold my overall opinion on it.
How
but
dare
I think
you?
this is a bad choice. I think it really is going to make a big gap between free to play or minor spenders and more spenders if these cards stay locked behind too many tokens and players don't have more ways to get them, which we're going to get to in a second because they do talk about that a bit here. Ghost, Sauron, Shadow King, and Dazzler all dropping. They talk about wanting players that have more opportunity to experiment with them, and that's why they're dropping. There might be some truth in that, but the truth is these cards just aren't good. So maybe they need the players to test them and use them and see what happens so that they can figure out how to make changes. But they've made changes before that have been in Series 4 and Series 5 before they've dropped. So right now, I understand where anybody says that this just looks like a way to get the unpopular, not powerful cards into the Series 3 column and keep the more popular meta cards hidden behind more tokens. We'll see how Second Dinner plays this out. So there you go. That's my original opinion. The question remains, is this pay to win? I might not say it's pay to win because some of the points I made in there about, like I said, untapped GG, getting different decks that maybe aren't the newest and still being able to win, because what is winning in Marvel Snap, which we'll cover in a second. But this still feels crappy for players, and there's no getting around that, period. Anytime you have rare currencies in game, players want to either be able to go buy them and spend them on whatever you want, or those people who save them and try to be very frugal and smart with their buys, they like to plan ahead and knowing what they could get, and this prevents that. So it feels crappy. It makes it feel like someone's going to say it's pay to win. The only counter to somebody saying it's pay to win is the fact that people can win with decks that aren't always the newest cards. How easy is that? That's probably a different video. But ultimately, we want to be confident in how we spend tokens in game. So what is winning in Marvel Snap? Is it getting to infinite? We've got conquest coming. Obviously, battle modes there that you're beating somebody. That's winning. That's our goal, right? Is to win against another player. Can you pay to win against that other player? You're paying to get newer cards. Your mind, your ability to put together a good deck can potentially get you to win without spending any money. Can you win with decks without the newest cards? You're going to hear both answers to that, but I believe currently you can. The issue becomes when you've got location changes. A lot of times people want to switch decks and they need access to these newer cards and they can't get them. So again, looking at the cards that didn't drop or that we aren't able to get for cheaper as expected, and how does that affect the potential meta? So the cards that are held back, Zabu, we mentioned this. Were we supposed to get him this month? I believe so. And he's a good card. It's arguably meta. We've talked about Darkhawk and Null. Both still pretty strong meta-ish cards being held back. Now we've got new cards held back in, besides Zabu, Hitmonkey. Absolutely, I'd argue that that isn't a great card that is being held back. You're not able to get that now for 3K tokens. Should you have been able to this month? I believe that was when it was scheduled. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but regardless, even if it wasn't him, Jeff the Baby Landshark should have been dropping a great card. Maybe not meta per se, but very flexible, goes in a lot of decks and can get you wins. I've personally held back on paying 6K tokens for him because I didn't want to spend that extra 3K on him, but I was probably going to get him for 3K. Now I can't. I will tell you, from the person like me who is expecting this to drop, unwilling to spend 6K, I'm not changing that position. I'm still not going to spend 6K on him. So it feels worse for me going, okay, well now I can't get this card and I still have to wait longer. So that feels bad. I don't think there's many people out there who would wait on a card like Jeff the Baby Landshark because they didn't want to spend 6K and then go, man, it didn't drop when it's supposed to. I guess I'll spend that 6K now. It doesn't happen. And we've talked about this when we were with Mobile Gamer. The game is meant to have a net fun. This part of it doesn't, there's no net fun in this. Feeling restricted on when I could get a card after already waiting and needing to wait longer isn't a good feeling. I said it in my opinion piece before, I'll say it now, and I'll say it in the future. I am very pro developer making monies on games because without them making money, the game doesn't exist. It's always about balance. And in my mind, this part of the does not balance out well. I don't think that that sort of thing is a good idea. So we've had 5 cards that should have dropped that didn't. Now, again, we mentioned earlier cards that dropped early. How many were there? 4. Sauron, Dazzler, Shadow King, and Ghost. But none of those, again, were meta. They were kind of like, when you're trying to make goodwill with your player base and giving them something early, one, you want it to be equal to what you're holding back. The numbers aren't equal. You gave 4 early and held 5 back. Fine, if Hitmonkey or Zabu wasn't supposed to drop, then okay, I'm off on my numbers. But that point aside, then, the quality of the cards being held back versus those going early is drastically different. And no one's going to sit here and convince me that the cards being held back are equivalent to those being given early. So again, it feels crappy. So the third thing I want to do before wrapping this up is sort of look at the offers in non-detail. You will see that I highlight my offers again in a spreadsheet. I've got dollars with this green, and then I've got gold here. And over on the right-hand side, when I'm looking at these 2 columns, tokens per gold and credits per gold, which is really what offers can be valued as or give you a good ratio for the value of an offer, I've got a black box around anything that's gold. So when you look at tokens per gold, you can see these black boxes. The highest one here, at least in June, is 0.74. Next is 0.6, and then the other 3 are pretty low. Credits per gold, also not great. There's one at 1.2, 1.2. So then looking at the cash money offers, which is basically everything else that doesn't have the black box around it. You look at tokens per gold, 0.4, okay, low, 0.7, okay, that's about the peak. It's a little bit higher than when we got 0.6. All right, so again, about the peak, 0.79. So slightly better, but not crazy better. But when you look at the credits per gold, it is that there for money, drastically higher. And again, let's go to May. So we got tokens per gold. The cash offer, by far the highest, 0.8. Trash Panda cash offer, 0.5. It's okay. It's basically equivalent to get a leg up. The whale buy, though, 1.2 for that collector's boosters. That was your best tokens per gold that month, way higher. But again, monster spending there. And then when you look at the credits per gold, you've got better offers in the gold buys, with the exception of Trash Panda, which was, again, a must-buy offer. So a lot of incentive to spend cash in game versus gold. I think you'd probably find this to be true as you went back further and further in the game. I don't want to bore you with every month, but you definitely get the feel that cash offers are better than the gold offers. And I've generally felt that when I do my offer reviews, either as a release or ahead of each month. And the reason being, I believe is simple, is you can earn gold free in game, but with hard-earned cash, you can get more stuff within each offer. And I get why they do that, again, because they want people not just to grind a game and free to play, and they need to make money to make these games. All of the things you're buying here is about your ability to get further along on the collection ladder and or new cards. So let's wrap this up. Is Marvel Snap pay to win? It's 100% pay to get access to new cards. And I'd say the good cards at the moment, given the way that they're holding them back. Wouldn't that mean it's immediately pay to win? Well, before I officially answer that, I want to point you to a post that Molly, who I believe is a Second Dinner community manager type. She had a post, I believe this was on Discord. I'm going to read it to you. Hey folks, we've been reading all the feedback and suggestions this morning. Thanks for sharing all of your thoughts, and I've noted them down. We wanted to provide some extra context. Flexible series drops aren't a singular change. That's what we've been talking about this whole time, these flexible series drops. They're the first part of a larger effort we'll be sharing in the near future. I do say that anytime developers say something about in the near future, I get a little worried, but let's just keep going. However, for a variety of reasons, we needed to make that change before rolling out the rest of the system. Dissecting this particular sentence, I know they know this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Anytime you do something like this without proper communication ahead of time is never good. It's better to proactively communicate. This message should have been out prior to the flexible changes thing happening. There should have been a post like this that said, we want to give everyone a heads up. We are going to be changing the flexible series drops. We're going to have more information on this come, but just to give you a heads up, there's steps coming that we're hoping that will actually make the card acquisition better for our player base. But this is our sort of getting ahead of it message. It is coming. Please try to stay patient with us or something along those lines. We're excited to show you the new system and hope it satisfies many of these concerns, especially when it comes to putting more cards in the hands of more players. So you can clearly tell they understand that's a problem. So what's this mean? Maybe it means they're trying to make it feel less crappy at some point, because that's really what this is right now, for sure for me. This feels crappy, and I've already explained why. It just doesn't feel good to feel restricted on when you can get access to certain cards. Discussing whether you can still win without those cards, again, that could be a different video. So we'll see if they can make us feel good on the post that Molly had, TBD. So this is what I'll say about Marvel Snap and pay to win. Is I've played a number of mobile games, not a lot. This does not make me an expert. It makes me capable of providing my experience and opinion. And I wanted you to understand the basis of where I get this opinion and feelings. And a lot of those games were insanely predatory, like thousands to potentially tens of thousands of dollars per month that people would spend in games. I knew people who'd spend $12,000 in the first month or two of a game to get ahead. Or I knew people who'd spend $4,000 a month to keep up, to make sure that they were winning the game. In Snap, I'm not even sure you can spend that much. And if you did, I think you're basically just gaining access to all the variants in game, which don't help you win, and titles and whatever you're going to get from that collection ladder. To me, that's not winning. Getting access to new cards can help you win. I'm not going to argue differently there. But what I would argue is in Marvel Snap, a player who has a good deck or a good player with any deck knows how to play it could beat or potentially beat any other player with any other deck in the game. I will throw the caveat of RNG dependent with locations and draws, because that can become a factor, but let's just call it a series out of 5 or series out of 10. I think they're capable. I think if you took the most pay to win deck and told someone, go make a series 3 deck to counter that, you could and still beat it. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but I'd like to believe that's the way it seems to be set up. And based on everything I've done in game and seen others do in game, I think that might be the case. If someone can prove that wrong or differently, comment below. Let's put out a YouTube video on it and show it, because I would love to counter that point to myself. I am not sitting here thinking this is the right point. I am very open for somebody to convince me that any position I potentially take is wrong, as long as it's done in a constructive adult manner. So to me, that means at its core, Marvel Snap would not be pay to win. But again, I'll say it. This system that's set up to keep the cards back and the new card acquisition system does feel crappy to players, period. And I don't think that's a good thing. So I hope they improve on this, but also leave us enough of a carrot to chase so that people keep staying interested in the game. Because I know that as gamers, if we get to a point where we've already reached the end game and there's nothing more to do or nothing more to chase, we'll just quit and stop playing. To sum it up, I don't think it's pay to win. I think it's pay to get new cards, and I think this system feels crappy. Is that the same? I don't know. I can sit here and debate back and forth with people on it, but that's my position. That's how I feel about it. I typically am trying to think of things from positions from both sides as best as I can. And my hope is that Marvel Snap continues to improve this card acquisition system and makes the player base feel better about this flexible series drops sometime in the very near future. Because I fear, like I said in the original video, that people will stop playing. Let me know what your thoughts and comments are below. If you want to come discuss on the Discord, that link is in the description below. I hope we made some sort of connection and understanding. Let's talk about it in the YouTube comments or Discord, like I said. Appreciate you making it this far. If you want to hammer down that like button, if you found this interesting, entertaining, or just want to give a comment on it, always appreciate that. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.